Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day today. Today, we are doing a follow-up to the 8.5-inch Durkin upper video with a 16-inch Durkin Tactical upper receiver. But before we get into the video, if you don't know, Gun Deals is a website that compiles some of the best deals within the industry and provides you links. They don't take your money, they don't buy or sell anything at all. Once again, they only point you in the right direction by providing you with links to, again, some of the best deals in the industry. So if you're interested in saving money on cool gear, go ahead and check them out. Once again, that is gun.deals. While you're already here, you might as well as like, share, and subscribe, and go ahead and comment literally anything down below. Full disclosure on the Durkin Tactical 16-inch upper receiver that you see in front of you is that, once again, we don't have any affiliation with Durkin Tactical for the review itself. We paid full price for this upper receiver. I believe it was $349 directly from Durkin Tactical. A very abridged version of Durkin Tactical is they basically are a parts company that puts together different builds from components, some, very cheap components up to higher and nicer components as well, but they basically just assemble parts kits for you, passing on the savings that they get from buying wholesale or, overrun products, again, by buying them in bulk. Now, taking a look at the upper receiver by itself, of course, because this is what you get minus the optic setup on here, and yes, I know this EOTech is worth about double the rest of the setup. Now, starting off with the tip, this is completely unmodified from them. Everything is the exact same components as it came from Durkin Tactical. We have a very standard A2 flash hider in 1/2 by 28. This upper receiver, I did not run suppressed whatsoever. I just ran it as is for about 1,000 rounds at this point. So we've been testing it for quite some time now, and it's ran very well with one minor snafu that we mentioned in the previous video. So moving back from there, we have a stainless steel barrel. This is a 16-inch stainless steel barrel. It is a 5.56 chambering with a 1-in-8 twist. 1-in-8 twist is a very good twist that's going to provide you a very wide accuracy curve with a lot of different grain weights for your 5.56 projectiles. Now, while the barrel is a very nice 416R stainless steel, it is unfortunately the M4 profile, and the M4 profile, if you're not familiar with it, basically means it has a cut right about here, a very odd taper, if you will, that will accept the M203 grenade launcher. It makes a lot of sense if you're planning on buying one of those. It doesn't make a lot of sense if you're trying to make the most accurate barrel possible, because of course it does really mess with your harmonics by having a huge cut like 2/3 through your barrel. So other than that, though, the barrel itself seems to be a very nice, high-quality barrel. The machining on it is just fine. The finish is a very bright finish. Some people like the bead blasted finish, so it's a little more matte. This is a little brighter, a little more punchy, again, kind of to each their own. Now, I'm not actually sure who is the OEM manufacturer on the barrel. The markings look fairly standard. It just denotes, stainless steel, the chambering, and the twist rate, and nothing special after that. So it is kind of mystery meat in that regard. Now, another very slight miss for me is that this is set up with a carbine length gas system versus a mid-length gas system. A mid-length gas system is just going to, of course, give you a little bit softer, a little smoother recoil impulse. It delays the opening just a little bit, but again, it is just a little bit nicer thing that you'd like to see, especially with a 16-inch barrel. Now, the gas block and gas tube itself, they're both very standard, nothing special whatsoever. It is a steel phosphate gas block, 0.750, very standard, using a double set screw design. Now, as I mentioned in the previous video as well on the Durkin upper receivers, this gas block also came loose on us after about the 600, 700 round mark. I noticed that the gun had started to not cycle. It was not getting enough gas into the system to cycle. Looked at the BCG, or not the BCG, sorry, looked at the gas block and noticed it had pushed itself forward about 1/4 inch, which of course meant that it was no longer getting gas into the system. That felt weird. Uh-oh, gas block came off. Yeah, gas block came off.
Uh-oh.
Now, the barrel is a dimpled barrel, so if the gas block set screws were torqued down properly, and preferably if they had some high temperature thread locker applied to them as well, they would have never come loose. But again, we are talking about a very cheap upper receiver, and so the assembly process is probably a little bit faster, a little bit less QC than what we'd like to see. But on both of the Durkin Tactical upper receivers that we tested, both of the gas blocks did come loose, so that is something that if you're looking at one of these upper receivers, you like the feature set, you especially like the price, you're going to need to do some of your own QC work, and I would probably start with the gas block set screws. Make sure those are torqued down nice and tight. Not too tight, but make sure that they're torqued down nice and tight. Again, the barrel itself is dimpled, so that when they are properly torqued and thread locked down, they should never come loose. Now, talking about the handguard for a second, this is kind of one of the main selling points. Well, to some people it might be the main selling point to me, but there is a better selling point to me in just a minute. The handguard itself is a 15-inch M-LOK handguard. It does have a full-length Picatinny rail on top. It does have QD points for your slings, both near the upper receiver and towards the end as well, depending on how you like to run your slings. That is a feature that I like to see. Has M-LOK at the 3, 6, and 9 o'clock positions for mounting whatever accessories you need. It does not have anti-rotation tabs, and unfortunately the mounting system is a very simple mounting system. It uses a 2-screw or 2 cross-bolt clamping design. It is steel cross-bolts into aluminum, which is not particularly strong or confidence-inspiring when it comes to anti-rotation. However, most people are not going to be mounting laser aiming modules, PECs, and that sort of thing on the end of a $300 upper receiver, but if you are, it's kind of a cool flex. Now, that being said, will the rail hold zero under normal recoil and that sort of thing? Yeah, probably will, but overall, if you intend to be jumping in and out of vehicles or out of helicopters, or you want to drop this 10 or 15 feet and expect it to hold zero, probably not going to happen. But again, for most people, it's aesthetically pleasing enough and has sling QDs built in, which is what I like to see personally, and so that's how I ran slings on it. Now, the main selling point for me personally is actually the very nice Lantac M-Spec BCG. Now, for me, the two most important components on any AR-15 are going to be the barrel followed by the BCG, and in some people's minds, those positions might actually be swapped. So what we have here is a true Lantac M-Spec BCG. Now, Lantac makes their eBCGs, which is like the enhanced BCGs. Those are very expensive, but this is still a very nice mil-spec plus BCG. So what we have here is a very standard 8620 carrier. We have a 4140 key with true grade 8 fasteners that is staked down to mil-spec. All of that stuff is very good. You should never worry about the gas key screws breaking on you, shearing off, or coming loose on you, because again, they are torqued down quite nicely and the staking on them is very substantial, which is again what I like to see. The main selling feature on the M-Spec BCGs is that they come with Lantac's proprietary domed cam pin. Now, with the domed cam pin, that also has a very nice, I'm not sure if it's a PVD finish on it, but it has its own sort of proprietary coating on it, is that because it is domed, it actually imparts less wear to the upper receiver and by factor of that to the BCG as well, by making it smoother in terms of its cam position, so it has less interference with the upper receiver as it's doing its thing. Which means that in theory you get less wear and tear imparted upon the BCG due to a smoother lock and unlock. It's a very nice feature. The machining on the BCG itself is very good. The nitride finish has held up very well. It is worn off on the rails, on of course your 4 rails where it actually interacts with the upper receiver, where all that wear is going to be. But the nice thing about nitride is it actually penetrates into the material. So even though if it looks like it's removed off of the rails, off of the bearing surfaces on the BCG, it is still imparting that lubricity, that heat resistance, corrosion resistance, all those sort of good mechanical properties deep into the material itself. Now, the bolt itself is a 9310 steel, which is a enhanced steel, so to speak, versus Carpenter 158. They're both basically identical. If the mechanical strength of 9310 is technically like 7% more, if they're both heat treated perfectly. Now, all that being said, the surface has a little bit of wear on the lugs and on the face of the bolt, which is again quite normal, as that is where it is interacting with the barrel quite a bit. But mechanically or materially, it is holding up very well. There is very little rounding or material removed from the back of the lugs, which is generally the first place where you're going to see material start to wear away. You're going to start to get like rounded edges on the back of your lugs, which is just a byproduct of lugs locking and unlocking against steel. Something's got to give, and eventually those will start to kind of wear out, round out, and you'll actually see material chunks get removed if you take a look at BCGs with like 10 or 15,000 rounds on them. Now, the carrier to bolt fit is also very good. So what that means is that the gas rings on the inside on your bolt itself are providing a good seal for the hot gases flowing through your BCG, of course, which means that you're getting an efficient BCG that is trapping enough gases to properly run your system. I have seen on some cheaper BCGs have a much looser fit where it's not really trapping gases effectively, which means that it's going to be slowing down your system, and if it gets gunked up, it will probably stop running. Lantac makes very high quality products. I know the MSRP on these bolts are like $175, and the wholesale cost is not very inexpensive either, as I do know exactly what these run for on the wholesale market as well. So overall, for the money, I think, again, we paid $349 for the upper receiver from Durkin Tactical. The fact that they were able to squeeze in a very nice, very high-quality BCG, which is, again, one of the two most important components on any upper receiver, the fact that they were able to squeeze these guys into the build and still make some money off of it is quite impressive in its own right. Now, talking about the upper receiver itself, it is a very standard mil-spec upper receiver, 7075 T6 aluminum in kind of a matte anodization. We do, of course, have some O-degree accents on the dust cover, the forward assist, and the mil-spec charging handle that is, again, kind of finished in this OD green. Now, overall, the components on here are mostly fine and kind of what you would expect on a very budget upper receiver. This is going to be in that sort of same price category as Bear Creek Arsenal, Palmetto State Armory, Delta Team Tactical, that sort of thing. In terms of is it better or worse than any of those, it's kind of a hodgepodge, because while one thing that I do say isn't a distinct advantage about this upper receiver is that it does actually have the Lantac M-Spec BCG, which is, again, a very high-quality component, and it's a very high-quality component in one of the most important places on an AR-15, so it is, again, something that I like to see. Now, the barrel is a little bit mystery meat. We'll talk about performance in just a minute, but overall, for the money, you're still getting a decent parts list with somewhat questionable assembly. Now, we've already talked about the gas block coming loose, so I won't really harp on that too much, but again, that is something you'll probably want to check if you get an upper receiver from Durkin Tactical. Now, when it comes to actual shooting performance, right out of the box, this was actually a very soft shooting upper receiver, which is quite nice. It was ejecting M193 at about 330-ish, and then steel case at about 4 to 430, so it was on the bleeding edge of reliability with steel cased ammunition. But with M193 and, you know, other high quality ammunitions, it was ejecting just fine and still being very smooth. Now, that was true for the first 600 or 700 rounds. After we actually found out that the gas block screws, the gas block screws were loose and the gas block actually moved and stopped working, after we actually torqued them down properly and we're getting a full gas seal on the gas block, the ejection pattern did change to about 230 with M193, so it was definitely a little bit more punchy. Not bad by any means, but a little bit more punchy. And then with steel case, it was about 3 to 330. You'll notice it's now shooting a little bit forward. It was incredibly softly gassed when the gas block wasn't tightened down all the way, because it was probably losing about 40% of its gas pressure. Well, initially, my thoughts, I was incredibly impressed with how soft it was shooting. I was like, wow, this is like gassed really well, like really, really soft, which is very surprising at this price point. However, again, that was mostly due to the fact that the gas block was loose and therefore not providing a perfect seal for all those gases. So after tightening the gas block screws, it's still a soft shooting upper receiver. It's still well gassed, definitely sort of in that mid-range performance, which is just fine for me. If you wanted to get it a little bit softer, you could throw in an H1 and H2 buffer. Most of the time we were just testing it with carbine springs, carbine buffer, so nothing special there. But even with a fully tightened, fully efficient gas block seal, it's still a fairly pleasant gun to shoot, so no real complaints there. Now, when we get into accuracy, this is another area that I wasn't really holding out a lot of hope to be like, you know, MOA or sub MOA. So we did do some accuracy testing with a couple different loads, some 55 grain M193 at 100 yards, And we were able to get around 2.5 inches, which again for ball ammunition is just fine. It's not going to have any problems whatsoever. And then moving on to some 69 grain ADI match. Again, not all that great a performance. I think the group was around 2 inches or so. And then surprisingly, we had a group of 68 grain Frontier match, which is like really bad ammunition. It does not shoot well in any of my other ARs. It actually shot pretty close to 1 inch in this gun, which I was very surprised about, that it shot that well out of this gun when it doesn't particularly behave very well in any of my other guns. Durkin Tactical 16-inch stainless steel barrel. I believe here we have the 68 grain match, which actually shot pretty well. One flyer, but other than that, a sub MOA grouping. Overall, about 1.5 inches. Our M193 shooting about 2 inches on the high end, maybe 2.5 inches on the high end. So not terrible for just ball ammunition. Down here, our 69 grain match from ADI shot about 2 inches as well, but we have 2 touching and 2 touching, so could have been a little bit of me in there as well. So now when it comes to value, I do think that this competes with a lot of other budget offerings just fine. Let's say you would compare this against a Bear Creek Arsenal upper for about, say, $250 is usually what they run. You might like this anodized handguard a little more, you might like the green accents, and you might like the nicer, higher quality BCG, and maybe that's worth the extra $100 over like a Bear Creek Arsenal, and it's going to be in a very similar price category to like Palmetto State Armory or Delta Team Tactical or some other parts company or manufacturer as well. But it really does compete nicely in that price range. The one thing that I will say about it, again, with both of the Durkin Tactical upper receivers, is the assembly process does leave a little bit to be desired. So if you are looking into buying one of these upper receivers, you get a good deal on it, you think that the parts just make sense for whatever it is that you want to do with that upper receiver, make sure that you go through it, or you have a buddy go through it, check all the little things on it, make sure your gas block screws are torqued down, check them every 500 rounds or so, and all the little stuff like that, just to make sure that that is going to continue to run for you for the duration of how long you have it. Now, for me personally, it performed just fine. Nothing special really whatsoever. I would say definitely adequate for the price category that it's in. You know, it was decently accurate. I was able to hit targets out to 500 yards without much issue. I was able to shoot it very quickly up close. And overall, the feature set is fairly nice. It does have a very high quality BCG, which is something that I do like to see on a budget upper receiver, is to have a good BCG that's going to last you thousands and thousands of rounds. And again, other than the gas block coming loose, it was 100% reliable with whatever ammunition I threw through it. So overall, its performance is exactly adequate, is what I would say for the money. So let me know what you guys think of this Durkin Tactical 16-inch upper receiver down in the comments down below. If you've had any experience with Durkin or any other kind of budget assembler or manufacturer, let me know what you guys think about those down in the comments down below. But that's about it for me, guys. Thank you guys once again for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace off.